You're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam. Streaming on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and at DCAUreview.com. Now, here's today's episode.
Welcome, everybody, to bonus episode number 16 of the DCAU Review. I am one of your hosts, Cal, and with me, my good brother, good friend, and co-host, it's Liam. Liam, welcome to bonus episode number 16. We are back in some familiar territory for this week's bonus episode.
That is right, Cal. We are back talking about the surprise, or at least it was a surprise when it was announced, 8th issue of Batman The Adventures Continue, or at least the digital chapters that will make up the physical release of the 8th issue. Secret Santa Parts 1 through 3. And we have quite a bit to talk about when it comes to this surprise, fun, bonus holiday adventure featuring Batman, Robin, and a whole host of the Rogues Gallery back here in all their glory.
Yeah, man. So as you mentioned, we kind of knew this was coming. We had talked about it, I believe, a little bit when we had the colorist for this series on our episode 130 of our standard program. We had, of course, best friend of the show, Monica Kubina, on.
That's right.
And she mentioned that she was doing some work on that when we had her on back in the beginning of December. So yeah, it was a welcomed and pleasant surprise. As we said, this is really the only sort of connection that we have right now to the DCAU at large. We don't know of any projects upcoming that connect directly to the DCAU outside of what this comic did. So with all of our likes and dislikes, maybe for the stories of these comics, it's nice to have some sort of inroad that sort of connects to this larger world that we love so much.
Absolutely. As we've talked about with our reviews of the previous 7 issues, which of course you can go back in the archives in here at DCAUreview.com or on your favorite podcast app. Regardless of whether you love the story, you just think it's all right, whatever, we'll leave the continuity to our friends at the Watchtower database, perhaps, but regardless, it is you will never find us complaining about getting to spend a little bit more time in this world. And through this comic, of course, we have the writing team once again of Paul Dini and Alan Burnett, the penciler and inker for the first 2 parts, Ty Templeton, and as you mentioned, best friend of the show, Monica Kubina, returning to do the coloring on this issue. Still quite a bit of fun to be had. We'll get into our thoughts on the plot and everything as we get into it here. But yes, as I said, you will never hear us complain about getting to spend just a little bit more time in this Batman the Animated Series / DCAU world.
Absolutely. So I guess that's a good kicking off point, Liam. We might as well jump into our review of the actual issue in and of itself. So interestingly enough, the cover for this was sort of hinted at as being a Harley and Ivy story, certainly holiday themed. We have Batman on the cover there, and he's sort of tied up in a Christmas tree with Harley and Ivy sort of resting at his feet there for the standard cover anyway. And that cover was actually done by the artist Mirka Andolfo. You can check out on Instagram and stuff like that his additional art. There's also a B cover, Liam, that was done by Ronnie Del Carmen, who's done a lot of DCAU work, other Batman animated covers and stuff, and done some stuff for, it looks like, for Pixar, and now works maybe strictly on Disney stuff, but some pretty cool covers.
Also a storyboard artist on Batman the Animated Series as well, so a lot of DCAU ties. Did some art for the much celebrated Batman, the Batman Adventures Holiday Special as well. So yeah, has great DCAU roots, and has obviously gone on to just bigger and better things with his work for Pixar and Disney.
Absolutely. So we thought, as I was sort of alluding to, we thought this was maybe just going to be a straight up caper involving Batman, Harley, and Ivy. But what we end up getting is actually a pretty interesting story about Arnold Wesker, aka the ventriloquist, and Scarface.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Obviously, we've just come out of the holiday season, and I don't think it's a secret, even in non-pandemic times, that the holiday season can be a tough time for a lot of people, especially if you're alone. And I think that's kind of on display in this story, where as it starts, we have Batman stopping the ventriloquist and Scarface from robbing a blimp. Very classic setup for a Batman the Animated Series or New Batman Adventures tale.
Not too many blimp robberies happening in the real world in 2021.
Not very often, but there's been quite a few if you follow the various series here. But with Batman foiling that caper, we kind of cut to a few months later as Arnold has completed yet another rehabilitation stint in Arkham Asylum. He is like the one guy, I guess Harley too, that we ever see actually like getting the help and actually like moving on from his stint in the asylum. We don't get to see a lot of the criminals truly reform, so it is kind of nice. This topic was sort of touched on in the New Batman Adventures episode. I believe it's called Double Talk, where Arnold attempts to go straight and then is sort of pushed back down the villainous path, and we certainly see that on display in this one again.
You also see it. There's for other tie-in comics. Also, there was a Batman Adventures annual that was released probably 93 or 94, available in the DC Universe app, by the way, if you want to check that out. And I know
comics are staying.
The comics are there if you're interested in tie-in comics. We of course that's another story for another time. But there's a story on that one where he sort of starts working at for a Muppets like stand-in type like children's program, and he ends up getting a frog puppet substituted, and he just always seems to be pushed back to this ventriloquist character by getting wrapped up in Scarface somehow or another. And so it's not exactly, I didn't think that was necessarily an original trope. It is something that they seem to go back to kind of over and over and over again.
For sure. I think the uniqueness comes from the holiday setting, and certainly as we find out a little bit later on at the end of Chapter 1, Harley and Ivy, who, as you mentioned, are on the cover, are putting together a little get-together for the holidays, which it's funny, both this and in the Batman Adventures holiday special, which was adapted into the episode Holiday Nights later. We established that Harley's Jewish, but she really loves Christmas.
I love that.
Which is a really funny little quirky bit that, again, feels very Paul Dini.
Yep.
To throw that in there. And so she just really wants to throw a nice holiday party for all their friends, which of course means a whole bunch of super criminals. So that's kind of, as we near the end of part 1, we find out that all of the super criminals, all of the underworld of Gotham is invited, except for the Joker.
No ex-boyfriends are allowed.
Her ex and his friend, straight man, of course, returning from the main storyline of the Batman The Adventures Continue series. He returns here as well, and Joker decides he's going to crash the party and begins to devise a scheme of, in fact, reuniting Arnold with Scarface so that they can set off this bomb, these explosives that were never recovered after Scarface's last caper there.
Yeah, we learned that Scarface had hidden them away and wasn't willing to divulge them. Of course, if you are familiar with the Arnold Wesker ventriloquist character, it's established in Batman the Animated Series that despite the fact that obviously Scarface is a puppet, there is some sort of dissociative disorder or mental illness that prevents him it's almost as if there are two separate brains within this person. So the Scarface can keep secrets from the ventriloquist, and it's, as it turns out, it works both ways, as we find out later on in the episode, or in the comic book, as it were. So yeah, it's interesting because we learn that despite the fact that this is clearly, he's a ventriloquist. It's his voice coming from this person. If you know anything about the episodes, which we obviously haven't covered yet in our standard episodes, but Batman does a pretty good job of establishing that there are two people sort of living inside of him. So therefore, the Joker then sets about trying to figure out how he can figure out where these explosives are. He's made it his goal to figure that out. He ends up crashing the party, the Secret Santa party, as it were, which is just a conglomeration of a bunch of different supervillains, all showing up, which we'll talk about when we discuss sort of the art and the visuals in just a second here. But and then wouldn't you know it, they force Scarface right back onto that hand of the ventriloquist to try and get him to kind of divulge where this stuff is. So then the Joker sets out to find it and stumbles upon it, and that's where they sort of the two heads sort of clash as we get some fun interactions between Scarface himself and the Joker.
Yeah, Scarface is really a fun character. He was created, I think, in like the later 70s or maybe even early 80s, but he feels like such an archetypal Batman villain,
for sure.
And certainly we'll discuss that more once we get to his episodes of the animated series. But it is really fun to see his personality clash with the Joker, and of course, the Joker being this master manipulator and unquestionably the top dog when it comes to Batman's rogues gallery. It's funny to see like Scarface trying to treat him like an underling, and Joker sort of going along with it only until he discovers the bomb and then immediately double crossing him. We also get, and in the middle of that, in the holiday party, we get the return of this wacky idea that Paul Dini first created in the I believe it was Detective Comics number 1000, which is this idea that Batman has this alternate persona of this goofy, like, inept thug called Newt Brody, and that he basically occasionally goes undercover to, like, sabotage villains' plans from within. And all of the villains in Gotham have hired him and have had plans foiled by what they think is just him being an idiot, but of course it's really Batman hamming it up and playing this dumb thug, which is a fun little wrinkle there. And especially I feel like in his later writings we see Paul Dini be very self-referential and bring back a lot of his characters that he's created even since the series has ended. And like you said, we'll talk more about the villain cameos in a little bit here. But yeah, as we get towards the end there, Batman and Robin make it to the subway station where the Joker has planted these bombs, and of course, as we said, Scarface thinks they're going to hold the city for ransom, but of course it's the Joker, so he doesn't really care about money. He just wants to blow everyone up. Shame him and Mad Stan never met. They would have gotten along really well.
Arguably different motivations for why they want to blow it all up.
Right.
But
they would have found some common ground for sure.
Absolutely.
But from there, that's sort of the end. Batman and Robin have a brief sort of scuffle with the Joker and Straight Man. They're able to disarm the bombs, and as is tradition in any story, as we've talked about, involving Scarface or a robot, Scarface is horribly dismembered by being run over by a train. And we get kind of a little happy ending, though, where Batman doesn't arrest Arnold Wesker or send him back to Arkham. He instead kind of sends him on his merry way, and it's the new year by this point. They sort of do a time jump between the Christmas party and this final part here, and we get a little bit of a happy ending and a redemptive arc. I know it's we see Batman as sort of this vengeful, angry character a lot in, certainly I think in more modern medium, anything post Frank Miller I think has sort of been influenced to see Batman in that way. So I do like that at the end here we do get a reminder that that Batman truly is a compassionate person, and that he and Robin aren't always trying to solve every problem they have with their fists. I really appreciated that ending of Batman sort of reminding him, hey, it's a new year, it's a new beginning. You don't have to be who you used to be, and sort of letting Arnold go on his merry way from there.
Yeah, it's as we said, for the first time ever, it seemed, the line that Batman says, he says, Robin's right, for the first time you actually defied Scarface. Think of the lives that you saved, Arnold. You're something of a hero. Like, what a cool line. Like, Batman, and that comes because Arnold ends up leaving this clue at the Joker's hideout that Batman is able to uncover, that Harley knows where the Joker is staying. So he goes to this hideout where the Joker was, and the only thing there is this ticket to a subway ticket and a couple of coins that he leaves behind. And Batman is able to deduce that that must be where the Joker is headed with Scarface and the ventriloquist in tow. Mm-hmm. So the fact that that Batman recognizes that this sort of mental illness that Arnold deals with, and that he really is trying to better himself. He's not just jumping back in the saddle over and over again. He just sort of has this terrible bad luck where people sort of force this ventriloquist dummy onto him, and he's doing his very best to try and escape. And so it's a very heartwarming ending. As they come out of the subway station, and Batman is telling him that he's a hero, and looking at all the people that would have died if this bomb had gone off on New Year's Eve, and there's fireworks going off, and we just get a smile from Arnold at the end there, and it's really, really good. It's a cute little ending, a feel good, warm and fuzzy. Like I wouldn't mind seeing this adapted. Like I could see this being adapted into a holiday episode, especially with that sort of warm and fuzzy feeling at the end there. So it's good writing. We can probably nitpick about continuity and certain characters that are appearing and all of that. But as far as storytelling goes, for what this is, a holiday issue, something that you're reading during the Christmas season, I really liked it. I really liked it a lot.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. As far as a standalone issue, other than Straight Man appearing, and of course, we'd be remiss not to mention the return of the GOAT. Mr. Wing makes a brief appearance as Harley's holiday party is being held at the Iceberg Lounge while there's supposed to be repairs going on, I guess to repair it after Mr. Wing and Straight Man had previously torn it up in their epic fight in the previous issue. Penguin has retired to his holiday home, and Mr. Wing is there, ever the faithful servant, serving him refreshments. We also, I don't know if you noticed this, Cal, but we also get a little bit of a justification for the Penguin redesign in the new Batman adventures.
I did.
Yeah, they meant there's an offhanded comment about plastic surgery, and in fact the reason why he had to get that surgery.
Yeah, I believe it's all due to the fact that Jason Todd beat him senseless,
yes,
right?
Like pulled him and threw him out of a helicopter or whatever, as we saw in the previous issues montage of the second Robin just manhandling all of the Gotham City rogues. We made a point of mentioning at the time that it was the Batman the Animated Series look for him that was being attacked, and so we find out that there was some plastic surgery at work.
And it says he flew south, right? So what better than to be in the land of plastic surgery than Southern Hemisphere?
Absolutely. So I appreciate that little, as well as the Mr. Wing cameo, which will always be a special day for us when we get more Mr. Wing content with which to make memes out of.
Hey, all I can say is that we threw it out there. Mr. Ty Templeton, the artist of this, we've already pitched it to him that we are ready to write a Mr. Wing miniseries.
That's right.
Standalone miniseries starring the breakout character of 2020.
Absolutely, we are. If one good thing came out of 2020, it was the debut and subsequent appearances of Mr. Wing. Hopefully, this is not the last time we see him in 2021 as well. But
hope not.
But yeah, I did get back to to your point there to wrap up the story section. Yeah, it's a really fun. This is 3 digital chapters, which will make up one sort of extra-sized issue. It's great. It's really fun. As you said, it's a very uplifting, nice tale, and as we get into art here, lots of fun cameos. If you love the series, if you love other animated series that maybe involve some of these characters as well, we get some really fun appearances and even some sort of Batman Rogues Gallery deep cuts that we had previously not really seen in this DCAU style. So
2 words. Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think from there we can jump into art. And what better way to start than with that holiday party? We have Kite Man, as you mentioned. We have King Shark. We have Deadshot and Captain Boomerang in their DCAU style, which, of course, we would go on to see in Justice League and Justice League Unlimited later on.
Yep.
We have Magpie, Rat Catcher, some very, 90s Chuck Dixon era Batman villains that kind of popped up for a few years and weren't really used a lot after that. So a lot of deep cuts, and of course, as we mentioned, Paul Dini likes to be quite use a lot of the same characters in his stories. We have a lot of his creations, including the Wonderland Gang makes a minor appearance, and the return of Baby Doll as well. So a lot of awesome cameos, a lot of great art done by, of course, as we mentioned, the dream team of Ty Templeton as the penciler and inker for the first 2 parts, and Monica Cabina, of course, best friend of the show, on colors. And I should mention here, Sean Parsons actually did the inking for the 3rd chapter. But yeah, so much great stuff to talk about from a visual perspective in this here 3-part comic series.
Yeah, we have talked about it each and every time we've reviewed these. Getting the digital copies of these it's such a, like, I am more of a traditional, I would say traditionally I've been more of a traditional comic book guy myself. Hard copies forever, but as obviously we move into the digital age, and certainly as more things are being released on digital, I've certainly grown to appreciate it. And some of that is just the way that the colors pop, obviously, and the way that, when you're looking at a screen instead of holding those issues, the multitude of colors and the vibrancy certainly is a little bit different than holding a physical copy. So obviously we don't have the physical copy of this yet. I believe it's due out in the next week or two, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it's the 3rd or 4th week of January it'll be out, so we got a couple more weeks here, but definitely look forward to picking up the physical issues
for sure
as well. And
two more covers, as we mentioned,
absolutely,
to add to the collection.
Gotta catch them all.
That's right. So I think we talk about it every single time we've reviewed these. That if you haven't checked them out yet, certainly go back. And some of these are available on the DC Universe app now, so you can subscribe. If you're a subscriber to that, you can pull up, I think the first 3 or 4 issues are available on DC Universe now when I checked. Some of them you can get every other issue in physical copy. Go support your local comic book store if you have that option. Those guys are suffering during the pandemic and have been as well, so go support them if you can. But regardless of how you view these, I think the artwork continues to be just, it brings joy every time you look at it. Like we've talked about, it puts you right in the universe. It doesn't take you out of or make you feel like you're in some other alternate universe. It really does a great job of making you feel right at home. So the colors for this, I think Monica had a lot of fun from what it looked like, and being able to incorporate different holiday motifs and colors, and the reds and the greens and the blues, and like I said, that final issue, there's a lot of mixing the Joker's colors with these different various outfits, that holiday themed outfits that Ty drew for both Harley Quinn and Ivy. And then, as you said, I think the cameo scenes, we get a lot of interesting visuals there for sure. These characters that we had never seen before, some certainly returning, all in the new Batman Adventures, or I guess the more streamlined style, with the exception of a couple of the characters that we had never seen maybe in this style before. We do get a King Shark appearance, and King Shark
sweater.
He's wearing a lovely Christmas sweater. Interestingly, he looks like he appears in the formerly DC Universe, now HBO Max, Harley Quinn cartoon.
Absolutely.
So interesting there. I guess we'll see if anything comes of that, or how that fits into potential continuity issues. But yeah, I think it's really, really fun. The visuals have been and continue to be, just outstanding. And we don't just say that because Monica's the best friend of the show, but the colors, I think, are just, it brings this to life as you go through.
Absolutely, yeah. No, phenomenal job as always by our friend Monica, as well as Mr. Templeton and Mr. Parsons on inks in the 3rd part.
For
there.
Sure,
a lot of good stuff. One of the images, and it's actually the images used on the title card for all 3 of the digital chapters, which is, it's just the classic Arkham Asylum sign, but it's just wrapped in Christmas lights. And it's such a simple little thing, but it was actually, I think, one of the first teaser images that we got. I believe Monica released it on her Twitter and Instagram.
Yep.
And it's so atmospheric. It just set the tone so perfectly, and just tremendous job by her and Ty as well. We do get some fun action right at the start of part 1. We have Batman jumping out of the bat plane, as we mentioned, to deal with Scarface's thugs on the blimp. We have this holiday party, which actually that one doesn't have a lot of traditional comic book action in it, but I actually think that even works to kind of set the mood a little bit better. We have some cool moodier shots of Batman and Robin sort of tagging along as they're kind of keeping tabs on Arnold throughout the second part, leading to this epic conclusion where, again, as we said, we get the fight between Batman and Straight Man once again, as well as the train destroying the Scarface puppet, and just that, as we mentioned, that sweet little ending of them walking out of the subway tunnel. We see the big crowd, fireworks going off in the sky behind them as Arnold kind of gives the smile to end the issue. It's really nice, and as we already mentioned, it's such a sweet, nice holiday feel-good story, and the art certainly contributed to that in a big way.
For sure, yeah. I was just looking through, that the first part of the first digital chapter of
Chapter 17.
Chapter 17, that's right. We didn't do our normal issue 8 chapter.
By the way, so this is just so we for the sake of it is, as we mentioned, it'll be physical Batman Adventures Continue number 8. It is chapters 17, 18, and 19. Secret Santa parts 1, 2, and 3.
Nailed it.
Got it.
But in that part 1, there's a scene where Harley is trying to convince Ivy to throw this party to celebrate Christmas, and there's a shot of Harley just staring out her window looking at a Christmas tree, and there's this beautiful gradient that Monica used of just the light coming through the window, lighting up Harley's face as she's staring out looking at the star from the Christmas tree, as she's begging Ivy to allow her to host this party. And then, the very next shot is a shot of Arnold Wesker staring directly at this same tree, and sort of his perspective on it, and the light. You see him from the back, but the light is shining on his face as well. Just really, really cool perspective things. As you mentioned, certainly part 2, as we see, the holiday parties. Again, maybe not a lot of action, but certainly that's where we get a lot of the fun there. We get the party is held at the Iceberg Lounge.
That's right.
Which, as you mentioned, we learned that the Penguin had to fly south to do his plastic surgery, or where he does his plastic surgery in the South. So we get the inside of the Iceberg Lounge for the second time in this series, and some fun to be had there. And then I think, as you said at the end there, a lot of the action is certainly takes place in the battle and in the abandoned subway tunnel, which we just talked about a couple weeks ago on the Static episode that covered that. But that's always a great setting, a great setting for me. Abandoned subway tunnel. I don't know why, but that works. Or this one was one that had been shut down, I guess. So. For whatever reason that works as a good visual there. But yeah, just a lot of fun to be had. The Joker, of course, we get his redesign, as we've talked about, as has been throughout this series. So the visuals are great, very
Absolutely.
very strong.
Yeah, one other one I'll mention is it's in part 3, as the Joker has already sort of gotten Scarface back to Arnold, and Batman and Robin are kind of tracked down leads, and it's just them on the roof of police headquarters talking to Gordon, and it's snowing, and you have this really nice atmosphere of Batman with the cape around him flowing, and him and Gordon just sort of talking at the edge. You see Robin standing in the background there. Really beautiful shot, very atmospheric, especially with the snow falling, and it really has that sort of chilly atmosphere. Batman and Robin, as you mentioned, are searching the Joker's hideout, and they're just completely in silhouette as Batman's searching and finds this subway ticket that you mentioned. Arnold leaves as a clue to find them, and yeah, just really tremendous stuff. And like I said, that ending with the snow falling and the fireworks in the background, and Batman and Robin kind of in the background as we kind of focus on Arnold. As we mentioned, this is really his story as much as it is a Batman story. So, yeah, really, really tremendous job. One of my favorite of all the issues, I think, from a visual perspective, just because of that unique wintry atmosphere.
For sure. Yeah, I would agree. I think this is, we maybe didn't love the way that the story kind of ended in Chapter 7. We had things that we nitpicked about it, or in issue number 7, rather.
For sure.
So maybe, this does a great job, I think, if this is the final issue, which DC has not commented either way.
No.
I feel like normally they make a big deal about it if it is the final issue of a series.
Well, interestingly enough, when the solicits for issue 7 came out, there was a big final issue in all caps attached to that, and then we got an issue 8 anyway, so nothing is set in stone as far as we know.
Sure.
We don't know of anything coming in the immediate future, but yes, hope springs eternal, especially with the cliffhanger to the Jason Todd Red Hood and Deathstroke story that was sort of teased in the end of the previous final chapter, chapter 16. I would certainly hope we'd get to see more. I don't know if they'll rename it and it'll be another mini-series, or we just get an issue 9 somewhere down the line, but fingers crossed we've got more coming. But as it stands now, this was definitely, if we don't get any more, this is certainly a nice, sweet, more happy, definitive ending to go out on.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a nice little bow. It's a nice little, pun intended, a nice little bow to put on it at the end there. So definitely, I would say I would recommend go checking this out. Certainly picking
Absolutely.
up it's $3 if you pick up the digital. It'll probably be $3.99 if you pick up the physical copy or whatever it's going to be. And I know that there is a trade paperback that they did announce, at least of the first 7 issues, that's due out later in 2021. If that's something that you're, I don't know that 8 is going to be a part of that, though. I feel like they announced before they announced 8 that there would be a TV.
Yeah, it was. I feel like it was all kind of really close together, but I don't think we've got like a content listing for what will be in that trade paperback yet. So definitely something we'll keep tabs on. You can stay tuned to our Twitter and Instagram. I'm sure we'll let you know
there you go
when that information comes around. And also follow World's Finest. They are also always on top of the DCAU news.
That's absolutely true.
James does a great job with that site.
Good point there. Yeah, follow us at DCAU Review. Check that out on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you guys for checking out this week's bonus episode. Give us some feedback. We'd love to hear if you checked out this issue. What did you love about this issue? What maybe didn't you love? Was there any Easter eggs or any nods that we missed that you'd like to discuss?
Do you agree with Cal's assertion that Joker would be more of a Disney Plus guy than an HBO Max guy?
Yeah, we did get an HBO Max reference in this issue, which I chuckled at just because it's like they have no rules about what they do and don't acknowledge in this thing.
Right. Well, it's so funny because as we mentioned in the past, it's very hard if, like our, God bless our friends over at the Watchtower Database, if you're trying to keep this at a real world timeline. The creators are not interested in doing that, and they will contradict themselves. Doesn't matter if somebody's driver's license said 1992, or if there's an event called the Near Apocalypse of 2009 that apparently happened 10 years ago, and we just have never heard about it. Like, doesn't matter. Firefly can show up in Batman the Animated Series time. None of it. Like, if you are someone that is trying to keep it to a strict real-world timelines, I do not envy your task. But as a standalone, just sort of fun Batman the Animated Series style tale, a tie-in to the main series, I loved it, and I had a lot of fun with it.
Absolutely, and like we said, we'll cross our fingers that we will hear more in the future from this series, the Dream Teams of Alan Burnett, Paul Dini, Ty Templeton, and best friend of the show, Monica Gravina. But until then, I'm Cal.
And I'm Liam.
And we will talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Bye-bye.